Welcome back to Autopsy of a Horror Movie. My name is Brucker, and today I am fortunate enough to be joined by the filmmaker Natasha Kermani, director of the new Shudder exclusive Lucky. Hello, Natasha. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I am really excited to have you on to be able to talk about Lucky. Congratulations on getting this movie released on Shudder. It's coming out March 4th.
Yeah, we're so excited. Honestly, Shudder was always my dream home for the movie. They're so smart. Their curation is so creative, and I just know that the Shudder people are gonna really respond to the movie. So yeah, I'm really over the moon that we found a home.
Oh, that's fantastic. So has the process been real well working with them, getting this out?
Yeah, honestly, they're amazing. They're so smart. I think they're honestly film nerds, right? They're like horror nerds themselves, which is so great to have that sort of a shorthand. And we've been working with them for a few months now, and it's just been a really, really lovely experience. So yeah, I'm happy to be a part of the family.
Well, that's fantastic. I am really excited for people to get to take a look at this when it is out on Shudder. Thankfully, your people were able to get me a screener, and I've watched it twice already. And I honestly think it's one of those movies you have to watch twice. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like a puzzle, and I mean that in like a compliment. It's kind of complex and kind of a thinker, and I love trying to pick out all the little details and try to piece them together to what at least my theory of the movie is, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Before we get to talk about your movie Lucky, which we will have spoilers for later on this episode, so spoiler warning for that. What about the horror genre do you like, and would you consider yourself a horror fan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, horror is so huge, right? So it's like you almost have to be more specific within that sort of like broad genre.
Right.
I'll say for me, my dad was a huge cinephile, and so I was very lucky to be exposed to some of the real greats. I remember sitting down and watching Alien for the first time, and that was sort of a groundbreaking experience. To sort of see, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd as well, and to see those worlds brought together and to see sort of like that really base level primordial horror movie in that sort of beautiful expressionistic setting was really, I was very young when I saw it, but it sticks with me to this day for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think I always sort of was a lover of genre. Again, I credit my dad for a lot of that. He, we would watch Star Trek together and just sort of like crazy sci-fi stuff, world building out there kind of stuff. And then, as I got older, he's a bit of a scaredy cat. So, he kind of drew the line. Even Alien was a little bit, he was like,
oh, really?
We should fast forward through this part. I'm like, no, this is the good stuff. But so it was kind of up to me, as I got older, and I would sort of go, back in the day, kids, we used to have things called video stores, and
right.
I would go and I would start wandering into the horror section and, start grabbing stuff and watching it. And, that I think is a really exciting process where you're sort of, not that it's taboo necessarily, but you're starting to explore new aspects, right? You're really getting into these darker themes, darker content, and I think there's like a really fun, semi-secretive journey that you take as a young person diving into horror. That was a lot of, that was just really great for me. And it was something that I did on my own, which I think was really cool. And then, yeah, I think, when I was in college, I dove really deep into Korean horror, right? International horror, French New Wave horror. And I think that just took it to the next level, for me, and was very, very inspiring. So I think it's been sort of a very organic journey for me that started in this like more science fiction, imaginative world, and then made its way into the more straight horror kind of thing. So yeah, that's been my journey through horror.
That's awesome. It is a very fun genre to kind of be into, and kind of like how you were saying, it is a very broad spectrum because there's so many different things there's so many different like subgenres that like, you could fit into it, like even with drama or thrillers and sci-fi as well. And so would you say that a lot of those movies you kind of watched growing up, like Alien, were those kind of like big influences? I guess like they got you hooked into it, but do you still feel sort of influenced by some of those movies you grew up with?
You know what I feel influenced by is the freedom that the genre gave those filmmakers, you know, and they're filmmakers that I really truly love and respect, and I would deep dive into, you know, every director goes through their Stanley Kubrick phase, right? And watching The Shining, you know, 10 times, 12 times, really dissecting it and seeing, cool, the genre is allowing him to have this incredibly expressionistic paintbrush. And so I would say the inspiration as a more mature filmmaker, right? So from the perspective of a filmmaker and not someone who just loves movies and loves to watch movies, because those are kind of two different parts of your brain. I'd say the influence was the sort of carefree aspect to what these filmmakers were able to do with the genre. And I find that incredibly inspiring because horror is so liberating. I think that is very exciting. And I think that's the number one thing because, again, you can take horror in any one of a million billion different directions. So it's really looking within your own creative self and saying, okay, what do I want to express now? And, you know, is this the right paintbrush? Is this the right toolbox for me to, you know, the right sandbox in which to play? And, you know, for a movie like Lucky, it's the skin of a slasher movie, right? Like that's what we're doing. So I find that, I just find that very exciting and very liberating. And that's, I'd say, the number one thing.
Oh, yeah, I love that answer. That's one reason why I kind of started the show is just because I felt like, or decided to focus on horrors, because I always felt like that the genre was a really great vehicle for message delivery. I feel like that, you know, you could do so many different slashers, but each of them have a different take home and message that they're really trying to convey. And sometimes it takes a couple watches until you know you kind of get it or it clicks with you. But that's kind of something I've always really enjoyed about the genre, is that it's been able to also like address taboo things without the movie seeing taboo, you know, at face value sometimes.
Well, and horror is very old, right? Like some of the earliest stories we have, you know, the Epic of Gilgamesh, these sort of old mythological stories are horror, right? They're exploring themes, these dark themes, death, you know, pain, grief, all of these things. This is a really eternal mode of storytelling that we've always had. And I think what's exciting about where we're living now is there again is all of these beautiful layers of horror. And you can go, you know, as subtle as you want, or you can go all the way into the total extreme, you know, punk horror aspect and everything in between. And so I think it's a very rich landscape that we're in right now, which is awesome. It's really awesome.
Absolutely. So I guess let's go ahead and get into your movie Lucky. I had such a fun time watching this and rewatching it. It was just, it's one of those, it's kind of a thinker. I mean, I feel like that there are several different messages you could get from this, but it was a total blast getting into this. This was a movie that was written by Brea Grant. And so what was it like? What were your first impressions when you got your hands on the script?
Yeah, so the script was sent to me by one of the producers on the film, and, you know, he had an instinct that I would respond to it. and I trust him very much. We're very close friends, so I was like, okay, cool, I'll take a look. And, you know, within the first few pages, I was like, okay, well, this is fucking different. This is not what I've been reading recently. So I'd say right off the bat, just how, to put it simply, different it was, and just completely did not care at all about obeying rules of sort of like what a commercial film script should look like or feel like, was initially very interesting to me. I loved that the main character was imperfect. I think that that's a really important aspect to Brea's script. It makes her feel grounded, and it makes the issues feel more pertinent and real, because she is not sort of this perfect virginal final girl. And so I was very drawn to that character. I was also reading it with Brea in mind, which is interesting because she didn't write it for herself.
Oh, really?
Right, but I was sort of reading it, seeing her in the role, which was cool. And then and then I got through to the third act, where there's sort of a big reveal, and the world sort of expands out a little bit, and then that's the point at which I sort of put it down, and I emailed Brea and I said, hey, I want to do this, let's talk. So that was sort of, by the time I got to that point, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this movie. Like this is really out there, and I can really sort of like flex my muscles with this project and try something different and take a risk, right? Like it's such a huge challenge to do a project like this, especially at the scale. It was always going to be a very small indie, and so that ambition. How ambitious the script was was very appealing to me.
I love that word that you use. Where you had an opportunity here to really kind of flex, your skill set and definitely the things that you're interested in with horror and sci-fi. And that was something I honestly was feeling while watching this, because I didn't do a whole lot of research on you or the rest of the production crew or whatever before I watched it. I kind of just wanted to just watch it and then do all my research, and I was just, this doesn't feel like an indie movie, honestly. Like I will say,
Bless you. Bless you for saying that.
And that's nothing against other indie movies or anything, but it is, I guess, ambitious, but it kind of just, it felt natural to who when I was watching it. This feels like it was just sliding into the skill set of whoever was making this. And it didn't feel like somebody was banging their head against the wall, like, how do I get this done? Like, they just did it. And, credit to you and everyone else that was involved in this. But it was pretty seamless, I would say. Like, I didn't feel real jerky around or anything. Like, it just kind of just flew so well. And I would say, like, there is one really awesome big set piece in this towards the end that's really rad. But the movie as a whole, it was hard for me to pick out like big moments or scenes to like want to dissect out and sort of study, because this movie just flows. It really does. And that's I mean, there are like the book, or not book club, the book signing scene, and some other talks with some of her friends and some of like the detectives and everything, but this movie really just flows so well. Was how was like the filmmaking process for this?
Yeah, totally. Well, that's a huge compliment, because I think often with indies, right, you're sort of stealing from Paul to pay Peter kind of thing. Is that the phrase? I don't know. You're kind of, some of the scenes are suffering because you're sort of reallocating, and we didn't want to do that. There's always a certain amount, like you said, the parking garage sequence, I always knew we needed to protect that. So I went in asking for this, and I got here, but it still wasn't all the way low. We were like, we were able to hold on to some of the resources that we needed for that sequence. It's still extremely tight, but sort of prioritizing that. I think what you're talking about is really the technical side of filmmaking, and I think it's absolutely the team, but it's also the approach that the team takes, right? So you're saying we have incredibly limited resources. We shot this movie in 15 days, which is insane. So how are we going to do this, right? Like, what is our approach here? And so always thinking about scope, resources, and that equation, and how to allocate in a way that is going to best benefit the film, where to hold back and where to move forward and use your resources. I'm super proud that we really didn't do very much overtime on this movie. It was, we kept within our hours. We kept a very safe, calm set, no one running around, on fire. It was very, very sort of well-articulated, well-oiled machine that we were able to put together. And that, of course, this is my very long-winded way of saying prep. It's 100% prep. And, even with that, it was very difficult because we had so little money. So we were really asking our team to come and trust that we were moving forward and that everything was going to sort of like come together. And the team really gave 150% on this movie. And that is, showing up to set, knowing what you're doing, having everything that you need or within reason. It's all about scope, scale, preparation, and resource allocation, right? Which is a very boring thing, but I really think that's, you know, as a director, you're a business manager, right? Like you're 50% business manager, 50%, you know, creative voice. So yeah, what you're talking about is absolutely a result of the management side.
Something that I like to discuss on the show and when addressing every movie is kind of getting to this conversation with sort of subgenres of horror that this falls into, because I feel like that this falls into a bunch of different things, which is just a blast. This has I mean, I think it has the beating heart of a slasher in it. There's some mystery, some thriller, sci-fi. What all, like, am I hitting all of it? Is there other things that you feel like this kind of floats into?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I think Brea likes slashers a lot. I think that's one of her favorite subgenres. So I think a lot of that comes through in the script itself. It's obviously designed as a sort of home invasion slasher type movie. I saw a lot of Scream in the script, sort of the self-referential aspect and just the containedness, the idea of being in a house. And so a lot of the imagery, sort of like looking through glass windows, and even, you know, a lot of the costumes and all that I think it's in the DNA of the movie. I think
It's one of my favorite movies
It's
ever,
brilliant.
yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. So that's certainly there. I think if you're doing anything that edges on horror, comedy, or satire, like Scream's going to be in there, you know?
Any sort of meta sense to it, yeah.
Exactly. Now, I think Brea takes it one step even more into sort of like absurdist theater land. But certainly Scream is in there as well. For me, definitely the visuals are a little bit different from a typical American slasher. That's definitely much more influenced by, you know, again, international cinema, sort of being a little bit more expressionistic with the lighting, right? You have a little bit of the Italian vibe where we have colors associated with characters and not being shy about
I definitely want to get into
that.
I definitely want to get into that.
Yeah. So I would say there's, for me, sort of that's, I think what I was more interested in bringing to the visual palette was a little bit more expressionistic stuff.
Yeah, it definitely it plays kind of like a slasher at times, slasher thriller, but it doesn't. It's interesting because it doesn't exactly have like the tone of a slasher at times. Does that make sense? Like the actions are very slashery, but it's a more serious tone than what I would say like a Scream has, or some other slasher.
For me, I was like, this is a movie of the Twilight. This is a Twilight Zone movie. Like that's what we're doing here is a reality breaking apart movie. With and I think a lot of our crew and cast, you know, when I say this is the Twilight Zone, right? People get that, and I think that's a big part of the tone, where the stakes are there. There is sort of, again, you're wearing the skin of a slasher is how I like to think of it. But really what we're talking about is this more sort of not necessarily character driven, but character problem driven, where she is getting lost in this distorted reality, you know, and that is not necessarily what a slasher is talking about. Right. So that's really at the core of it for me. And again, that's something that I was interested in really bringing in, rather than just doing a straight slasher. Okay, she kills him, he comes back. She kills him, he comes back. Trying to see where else we can pull through the themes of the world distorting, right? Like you're walking through into this sort of nightmarish version of your reality. That to me was at the core of it. With the details and the skin of a slasher home invasion movie.
Would you say that because of that, and I'm not an expert on this subgenre, but would you say that everything you just said makes it a qualifier for it also being a cosmic horror movie?
Sure, yeah, because I think it is dealing with the nature of reality. Absolutely. I mean, there is a question. I mean, for me, the start of the movie is she starts moving again through the looking glass, right? So talking about a parallel universe or a different version of her universe. She's walking through, and that's why, again, we see so many mirrors. We see a lot of reflections. We see a lot of broken shards of glass and mirrors. That is absolutely her reality going away and being replaced with this like crazy fucked up version of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for kind of talking to me about that. I find it kind of fascinating on how, especially this movie is kind of like really interesting to pick like all the different aspects of it. Like, this is definitely from this genre and this is from this genre. It's a fun movie to go through those sort of motions.
I've always liked the spaces between genres though. Like even talking, when we've started our conversation, I'm talking about Alien, right? Alien is part sci-fi, part monster movie, part, grounded story about truckers getting lost. So it's like all of I like the spaces in between. I get a little bored, I think, when it's just one thing all the way through. So that's just my own, what I gravitate towards.
And I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really fun to kind of hang out in that gray zone in between things. So you mentioned the color earlier, and this was something that was driving me crazy, not in a bad sense, but just like, what does this mean? The color blue is everywhere in this movie. I think it's in every single shot of the movie. Somebody's wearing something blue. May wears blue the entire movie, I believe. Her wine looks blue in the glass. She has blue soap. There's a blue globe in the background sometimes. Like, there's people on the streets are wearing blue. The buildings are blue. Was this just more of like an aesthetic choice, or is there some sort of like coding here that we're supposed to pick up on? And I understand like it made the reds stick out so much more with the man. He's wearing kind of like a muted red suit a little bit, but there's a lot of things that she walks through that are red and kind of maybe signifying or foreshadowing something. But just picking up on all this blue was, I was like that meme of the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the string.
Yeah, trying to connect it all.
Yeah.
I worked with an incredible production designer, LB Minnick. She is an artist. She's a visual artist, fine artist in her own right. I absolutely adore working with her because she is absolutely unafraid to do what we were talking about, right? So like to paint with a really expressionistic brush and use all of the tools in your toolkit. Again, we're limited by budget, but what we can control, right, is like, what is she wearing? What kind of color soap is she using? That kind of stuff, right?
Her book cover is blue, yeah.
The book cover is blue. So the very, very simple answer is May is blue. That's her color. I also think blue, I like her as a light blue, like this sort of crystalline, very cold blue. So not necessarily a calming blue. It's usually a more energetic blue that you're seeing, often sort of tinged with some sort of green or more active color. So it's not a calming blue. It's much more of a buzzy blue, I guess is how I would describe it. And so that's her color. And so the instruction there was basically like, the world that we're in is not reality. It's not the world that you and I walk through every day. The movie is, the world is May. So the house is a reflection of May's mental state, of her being. And so that's why you see her color everywhere, and all the little details throughout the house are a reflection of where she is in the film. So the house in many ways is her brain, her ethos, sort of reflected back at us. So again, you see a lot of the light blue details throughout. There's art that changes throughout the movie. So like paintings will actually switch out as she's sort of
very cool.
deteriorating or becoming more anxious. The paintings become a little bit more violent. There's another thing we really wanted was the female body as a prop. And as an aspect of the design. So you'll see a lot of sort of like headless and limbless torsos, female torsos. Again, it's really, it's about violence, right? And it's about this sort of understated, insidious sort of undercurrent of violence that's omnipresent throughout the film. Which of course ties into the larger themes of the movie, but there was just ways for us to visualize that on screen. And again, just really going for it and being like, yeah, everything's blue. Now the blue kitchen was, we just found it. We didn't paint it. It just was the perfect color blue, and we're like, great.
That's fantastic.
We'll take it. So, yeah, and then there's LB had another stroke of brilliance where she found these mannequin hands that you'll see throughout the film. And the hands actually count what day we're in or what number visit we're at with the man. So on his third visit, there's a hand, there's like hands in the background that will have 3 fingers up or 4 fingers depending on where you are. So just finding little ways to really articulate where May's mental state is externalized. The last part of this that's just very, very simple is the movie takes place in one place for the most part. And it's going to get really goddamn boring if we don't make it cool. So we were like, let's just find cool ways to keep it fresh so we don't feel like completely bored by being in the same spot all the time. So that sort of was the final part of that. And the red, of course, is the color of the man. So May is blue, the man is red. You're correct. His outfit is not actually black or brown. It's actually a very deep burgundy red. So everything that he's wearing also has red tones in it. And the red just basically exists in opposition to May's blue. And of course, red and blue are complementary colors. So that's sort of also a part of that. The man is in opposition to May, but is also in many ways a part of her. And a part of who, how she moves through the world. He's sort of like an indelible aspect of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the colors.
Okay, I just had, that was like my biggest burning questions because I was just, yeah, it was just everywhere. And again, I'm not it's not like a criticism or anything. I was just like, this has to mean something. And
it does.
I was kind of curious because it like really stuck out to me when she went to her book talk or book signing, and there were so many strangers there that were wearing blue clothing as well, but not all of them were. So I was kind of wondering, are they also like needing to learn or going through the same struggle that May is going through? That's why that's like what the coding is just kind of like this struggle of accepting and asking and also being willing to help other people. It was kind of like the code, like people that was kind of like where I was trying to fit my theory into. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. Yeah, what you just said makes absolute sense. And that's absolutely part of the intention of the script is all these people are sort of trying to find ways to connect. And of course, the tragedy and part of the horror is that they're not able to connect and help each other in a meaningful way. But they are trying, and that's all any of us can really do.
Right. I will say, you briefly brought up the man's costume design or outfit design. I do want to say I love the simplicity of it. I don't know why I'm so picky about this thing, but I'm really picky about masks in horror movies. Michael Myers works, of course. So is Jason Voorhees in Ghostface, but like other ones that we kind of see more like modern, I haven't really. I've been kind of put off by them, but I loved this one. Just kind of like just slightly distorted, kind of like clear coating over the face. I was like, that's it. That's all we need. It needs to be simple. I loved it. And
Minimal.
Yes, exactly. And that was when I first saw the trailer. That's one of the things that stuck out to me the most. I went, oh, this could potentially be something that could scare me because I don't think that the antagonist mask looks goofy. I think it actually looks very creepy and something that somebody might actually use, maybe.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the mask is designed by Jeff Farley, who's really wonderful creature designer, prosthetics artist. And the impetus behind the mask is that you question if he's wearing a mask or not. So this is about real horror. And the reality is, if you think someone is following you, he's not wearing a goofy mask, right? He doesn't have like a sheep's head on his head. It just looks like a person. And so that's really where we wanted to start. And the idea being, I pulled a lot of paintings and art where the artist or the sculptor was playing around with distorting the face as it is.
Cool.
So sort of very subtle use of sculpture to sort of have a otherwise, quote unquote normal face that's distorted in some way. And so that was sort of like the groundwork, the initial sort of mood boards that we were bringing in. And then Jeff really brought it to the next level, and he was the one who sort of said, okay, we probably don't need to put any color or texture. We can probably just have the clear material, and then let Hunter Smith is the name of the actor who plays the man, let his features come through. And Hunter has a very striking face, and he's a great physical actor. So that also allowed the actor then to emote. So we can see his eyebrows, we can see the shape of his mouth, we can see all those things, but it's being distorted ever so slightly by the mask that's sort of moving the flesh of his face in bizarre ways. Jeff also had a great stroke of brilliance that I absolutely love. If you go back and watch the movie again, you may notice the masks have the names of the women that they're hunting over their mouth. So it looks like some sort of scar tissue or something like that. But if you take the mask off and look at it, you can see very clearly it says May, or Edie's man says Edie. And so that was sort of a lovely little note that he brought through that I just loved so much. And, you can see it in some of the shots. But I think even if you're not explicitly registering that it says her name on his mouth, I think that it's there, and that it, it has sort of that subliminal effect that you feel that there is something personal about this guy, like he is really after her. So the overall look for him, so in this script, the man is written to be much more Michael Myers-y. He's supposed to be sort of like a big hulking guy. And one of the producers on the film, Rob, and I were talking, and, Brea is a very small person. And just logistically, we were kind of struggling. It was like, man, if this huge, like 6'5" dude is coming in, like, she can't defend herself against, she has to be like a fucking awesome martial artist, and she's supposed to be the every woman, right? Like how, so it was just that basic visual disconnect of like, I don't know if that's so believable. Like, okay, maybe she can, I don't know. It didn't really work for me visually. So we started talking about casting someone who was a little bit closer to Brea in size, which of course ended up working beautifully with the themes of the film. Yeah. Because of course, if every woman has her own demon, the demon would reflect that woman in some way. So, that there's not one monolithic man out there, but that they actually are reflective of the woman that they are hunting. Which I love, and came organically out of that conversation of just being worried visually, having these two people on camera and seeing Brea, without having any real fighting skills, able to defend herself night after night was just, it was pinging me a little bit wrong. So it came out of that, and then we love Mads Mikkelsen in Hannibal. And so we were sort of playing around with that idea. Okay, what if his hair is like beautifully put together and he's actually kind of well dressed and a little bit posh, and I think Rob said, posh, beautiful. That has to be his vibe, which I loved. I loved it. I was like, yes, that's so up my alley, because again, it's just leaning even more into the Twilight Zone aspect of this, where he is not a Michael Myers, right? This is some guy who...
He's not this gross zombie, yeah.
No, he could be walking down Financial District in Manhattan, walking home, and, almost more Patrick Bateman-y, if anything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So that was it came out of a lot of conversations, but I'm very happy with where we landed. And then, of course, the final piece was casting Hunter, who's just wonderful, physical performer. He's also a beautifully capable dramatic actor, which was also very important. So we could kind of have discussions, and even though he doesn't have any lines, he's very much a scene partner with Brea in all of his sequences. So.
Yeah, quick joke. I just want to squeeze it. I was like, should I feel guilty that I wish I could have that hair?
I know, this beautiful hair. No, that's absolutely, that was part of it. And I love Dracula, and I love these, getting into the subtleties of it. And again, that's a little bit unusual for a slasher, right? Because in a slasher, it's usually it's someone who is scary right off the bat. Whereas we're kind of toying with, is there something wrong with his face? Is it a little bit weird that he's wearing that overcoat? It's like all this, it's much more small little detailed things that, yeah, and absolutely, like hair
Yeah.
envy for sure.
And and it also kind of just adds to, I guess, like a creepiness to, especially the reveal in the beginning when Ted kind of just explains, what's going on here. Oh, that's the man that comes here every night, and you kind of just go, that guy, really? That guy, he's the man, not someone who looks really dirty or gross, or
Yeah.
you kind of, maybe you think about the Vince Vaughn's character from Freaky, how just
Yeah.
disgusting he was in the slums he was living in. But no, it's
Yes.
this guy that looks like he took a shower and spent 45 minutes working on his outfit before he came here to kill you.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but,
That's his vibe, because that's May's vibe. That's the thing. Like, she's very put together. So you'll notice, like, she's buttoned all the way up, right? Like her shirt, the top button is done. Everything is just so. Her braids are perfect, until they're not. But again, he's a reflection. Everything in the movie is a reflection of May.
yes, and her, May, and the man mirror each other so much in this.
Exactly.
And like, there's times where they have the same, like he comes with the same weapon that she has, or
Yes.
especially all the times that they fall on the ground together, their body positions are mirroring each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, all that was very cool and just kind of fun to pick up on.
Well, there's so much in there, and I think Brea started it because she wrote in that his weapons always reflect May's weapons. So that's in the script, and it doesn't really go any farther than that. So the team we decided, okay, let's take that a few steps farther. Let's really make them like twins. I'm really interested in this idea. You're talking about cosmic horror, that there's the idea that there's, the yin to her yang, and that there is sort of a connection between them, right? He shows up wherever she is. He's connected to her. In the way that, if you want to say he's the embodiment of fear or abuse or trauma or whatever, you choose to see it within him, he is tied to her in that way. And so all of these visual choices that we're making are all, in accordance with that core idea that they're sort of circling each other in this crazy reality. Like two planets. He's like tethered to her.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like they're like this dyad in this
Yeah.
alternate reality that they're living in. You just mentioned that he could maybe be like the embodiment of fear. That's something I like to talk about here, is kind of do like a little fear analysis, and what all the types of fears that this movie taps into. I kind of go off of a basis of 5 common fears, according to psychologist Dr. Carl Albrecht, that we all share, which are extinction or death, mutilation, loss of autonomy, separation, and then humiliation or shame. And while this movie, obviously, there's in almost pretty much every slasher or horror movie, there's that fear of death in this, but I really felt a sense of loss of autonomy and some like separation as well. Loss of autonomy pretty much coming from, she's, to me, kind of like just stuck in this altered reality that that we've been talking about. And she, in her book signing scene, she talks about being able to identify patterns and to like kind of like address those things. And that was kind of something, her character, it's something that she was struggling with, or like a moral that she was supposed to learn, was it's accepting help and helping others as well. And it kind of starts off right at the very opening scene of the movie, where her publisher is saying maybe we could her agent saying that we can maybe name the next book Go At It Alone Together, and she kind of rejects that title. And she, at the book club, she's kind of talking about how we're going at it everything alone. Everybody, all of her friends we see are surprised when she does eventually ask for help. She refuses to help other people in the garage except for the person that she knows. And my interpretation was that of the movie was that this is possibly a time loop that she's stuck in, or just an alternative reality, and she can't escape it until she learns this lesson, or this moral, that of helping. If you're in a position to help others, maybe you have a moral obligation to do so, and also to accept it as well. And that's kind of was like my interpretation, is that like what this character was going through, and that she has, because she's rejecting all this, she's having this loss of autonomy because she can't escape this weird reality. And that to me is really scary, just not being able to try your hardest. Because she keeps trying, but all of her efforts are just fruitless because she can't get out of this situation. That to me is just really terrifying.
I agree. I think one of probably the scariest, scarier to me than a slasher or a creature feature is the I'm lost in a nightmare movie. I think that's, like an Event Horizon or when you're just stuck and that's it, is the scariest. And that is exactly what's happening to her, is she's basically stuck in the nightmare. And that's exactly right. She, it's in the title of her book, is Go It Alone. And she is a self-help author. It's all of these things where this is a woman who is supposed to have all of the answers. And what happens when, her usual go-to, just shove your way through the problem and go it alone. And, when that isn't the answer anymore, or maybe there is no answer, right? Maybe this is just, like she says, this is just how it is. And, you just got to, do what you can and try to help the people around you, which of course she's really unable to do throughout the movie. Absolutely, that's a part of it. A big part of the early character conversations that I had with Brea was, what you're talking about as macro themes is absolutely in the DNA of the film. But in terms of the character work that she's doing, I encouraged her to play the character as someone who's constantly looking for a solution. So she's a solution-based person. Every problem has an answer. And of course, there's conflict in the movie because there's no answer. It doesn't fucking make sense. She kills him, he comes back. So what the hell are you supposed to do then? So that's kind of on the micro level, how we played it, because I think, again, this is a testament to Brea's performance, but it's very difficult to keep the stakes grounded and to keep the character grounded when you're dealing with such crazy, heightened, again, expressionistic, the dialogue that the characters are saying makes no sense at all. So, how do we kind of, how do we enter into the scene work? How do we find our way through the scenes? And again, I think your interpretation of the film is exactly right, in that it is ultimately, within herself, her own inability to ask for help, yes, but also say, I don't have the solution within myself, right? I cannot answer this alone. I need to be part of a community in order to do that. And of course, that's a larger statement on where we're at, right? Women as a whole, as a community, obviously women are not monolithic, right? There's different types of women. There's different types of problems that women face. And, the solution or the way forward is only possible through community, and it's not a solo thing that can happen.
and that was also a much bigger message in the movie as well. It was just kind of, unfortunately, just how, I guess, dangerous it is to be a woman today. They talk about her being alone in a parking garage. She doesn't need to worry about being home alone during the day, but at night it's a different story. Everybody's asking, where's your husband? You'll probably be safer with him. That was a big message that was kind of in this as well.
That's the impetus for it. I don't want to speak for Brea, but the concept for the movie did come from a personal experience and sort of being gaslit herself, and sort of the bizarre conversations and circumstances that came out of that experience. So that is very much grounded in reality, and it's been really interesting. A lot of women who watch the movie, have reached out or have responded to the film feeling like, this is my experience, right? Obviously, there's not, I don't live in a Twilight Zone, but the core of it is reflective
of the rules
are
kind of the same.
The rules are real. It's a real thing. Everything is real. And, even in the way that we worked with an incredible woman stunt coordinator. And, it was really important to me that the way she fights, the way she defends herself is not super cool or
I kind of liked it, but yeah, I will say.
Right, but meaning she's not a superhero, right? Like she's very much just a normal woman who's just trying to like survive a crazy situation, and that was incredibly important to me that the violence feels grounded, and the violence, even though there's very funny moments that come out of it, there's nothing heightened about the violence because that is real, and that's not okay to glorify or to make it sexy and fun,
right.
because those were the parts that was very important to me to feel real and not like she's suddenly doing like judo kicks and stuff, you know?
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say that was something that I did appreciate was just how, because every time I'm watching like Scream or whatever, I'm always thinking just bull rush them, just throw your body at them. They can't they can't hold you up, and I really appreciate that was the tactic she threw in her shoulder into everything. I love that.
Yeah, that was all Helena. That was our stunt coordinator, because I was kind of like, look, I've never really like been in an all out fight, so I'm gonna lean on you here to tell me like what to do, what would feel right. And so a lot of the conversations, and again talking about prep, we had I think like 1 or 2 days where we went to a gym with Hunter and Brea and the stunt coordinator and Brea's stunt double, and just sort of like worked through the machinations of the fights. And again, the fights they come and go very quickly. There's no emphasis on the fights themselves, but I did want to make sure that it all felt more or less grounded. And again, she's not doing like crazy Trinity, kicks and moves and stuff. Like she's just a normal lady. And I want to also say, another thing that I really liked about Brea's script is I felt that I think that there's a lot of virtue signaling. And I think that there's a lot of people who want to have a rah, postmodern feminist moment of we're all in this together, we're going to take down the man, all this sort of social media lends itself to it, right? Like we're all getting together and we're all cool and here we go. And the truth is, I think the reason we're still in this shit is because there are problems within our community. And, white feminism exists. That is absolutely a thing. Transphobia exists. And so I love that the movie doesn't shy away from that. And that she does have that moment of like, look, I'm sorry, I can't help all these people. Like I can barely take care of myself, right? And we see her being selfish. And I loved that. And that's actually one of the first things I talked to Brea about was like, I love that it makes this script and this character makes me look at myself and say, when were there opportunities when I could have been better? I could have been a better ally. But I was too wrapped up in my own experience and my own problems or whatever was going on. And so I missed an opportunity for connection, for real solutions, for real change. And I think that without looking at those less savory aspects of whatever you want to call it, feminism, the search for equality, without looking at ourselves through a critical lens, we will never really, have the conversations that we need to be having. So I like that about the movie, and I hope that people can have good discussions about the problems and the problems that she creates, out of it as well.
But before I get to some of our ending stuff, I wanted to ask, just on a personal level, so there's lots of I would say cool methods of death in this movie for the man of the way he dies. Just either just purely just watching it from just like an audience member or directing it. Was there one sort of kill that you enjoyed the most from either perspective, making it or just watching it?
Oh, that's a great question. I liked the bed fight a lot because it felt the most dangerous, and I enjoyed the challenge of that and keeping it super intimate, and it's a very small fight. And I really enjoyed that, and just her like sort of classic, like again, kind of Scream classic slasher moment of her bringing the two-handed knife down into his back was very satisfying.
Yeah.
And Hunter sold the hell out of it. It was really fun
Yeah.
to see him sort of do the down was a lot of fun. But no, I would say that, and then of course the parking garage, just seeing all the different fights and all the different men was a lot of fun.
Yes, that whole like set piece in the parking garage was just great and really fun to watch as well, especially with it was a very like kind of like transformative part of the movie, because that's where you really felt like reality is weird in this. Is not just me, and all of the lights change, and we're kind of seeing her constantly say no to other people. But yeah, how was it directing like those fight scenes, especially those like intimate ones that you talked about? Was that is that challenging, or was it kind of...
Oh, it's super fun. No, yeah. It's great. I love stunt people. They're some of my favorite people to work with. I find that they're incredibly creative and great storytellers, and I love the idea. It's a form of dance. It's a physical expression of what's happening in the scene, and so I love that. And I think also, we're talking a lot about the more liberating aspects of a horror movie, and I think with the fight sequences, you can also get really creative with your camera work, with sort of your coverage. We shot a lot of those sequences with 2 cameras just for time. So most of the movie is single camera, but most of the fight scenes are 2 cameras, which was really just logistical choice to be able to get as much as we can out of each of the fights. But I think that was actually really great for the stunt people, because I think they could just figure out their choreography, and then we would just do it until we felt like we had nailed it. But I absolutely adore stunt people. I love working with them, and there's going to be stunts in everything I do, because I just love working with them.
That's awesome. I gotta say, I think I kind of had like 2 favorites. One was, I think, the first one that she had where she pushed him down the stairs. Yeah. I love the build up to it, because she kind of got to the top of the stairs and she turns around and she just goes, just fuck this, and she just shoves him down the stairs. I was like, yes, like, use your body, like, use gravity here. Yeah. Like, it's great. And I think just from like style points perspective, I love that she stabs him in the neck, but it's like real slow, and then it comes out and blood just pours all over her. From style points, that was.
I have to rescind my former statement. The most fun was actually pouring blood on Brea's face. That was definitely the most fun. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll kind of start to wrap things up here. But what are some sort of future projects that you would, like to kind of get your hands on? Do you want to stay in the sci-fi horror genre, or other kind of like other things that you are interested in getting into?
Yeah, absolutely. My first love is science fiction, so I'm hoping to do something with, continuing down the road of creating crazy worlds. I think that's really interesting, and one of the most fun aspects of making a film is being able to create the world rather than just a sort of documentary approach of capturing the world as it exists. I think I'm intrigued by how far can we go with really creating and controlling every aspect of the world that we see on screen. So whether that's in a straight horror context, or a version of the past, right? So like a period project or a science fiction of some sort. I certainly want to continue playing with world creation. Is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, Natasha, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a lovely experience being able to talk to you about this movie. You're so knowledgeable about all this stuff. It's always really fun for me, because normally when I'm doing research, I'm trying to watch YouTube videos with them or whatever. So it's really awesome when I get to take advantage of just hearing it straight from the creator's mouth. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, be sure to go to Shudder and watch Lucky. It will be available March 4th. I will be releasing this after March 4th, but everyone be sure to go to Shudder and check out Natasha's movie Lucky. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for the great questions.